episode 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't even know. But welcome back to my corner of the internet, y'all. So crazy. I just got done recording another video. And I usually do like a drive and yap to the office every morning. Or like, a couple times a morning, whatever. But I drove all the way to the office. And because I'm not in my own car, so I had to take my man's car today and not my truck, which I love my truck. I love that little, we call her the She-Hulk because she's cute, but she's big, she's thick, and she's green, and she's strong. So we call her the She-Hulk. So I didn't drive She-Hulk today, meaning I didn't have my key. And with the Tesla, I got this little stupid, ugly key card. So since I wasn't driving my vehicle, I didn't take my keys, but on my keys are my keys for the office. And of course, if I just have my computer and stuff, like my work things, I could just go home and leave and just work from home. But all of my stuff I left in the office because I knew I wasn't going to do any work at home last night. I got done with work. I spent the day with my daughter. So we are actually now driving and yapping back home, which is something I don't usually do because when I'm going home, I'm usually ending my day. So it's so crazy that I have 3 hours free this morning and I was going to catch up on notes and get creative and do all this work. And now, girl, what the helly? As my niece would say, what the hell? But now I'm driving all the way back home. And so we gonna get back into it. When you're in your 30s, because I've been heavy on this concept of friendship, when you are in your 30s, it feels so hard sometimes to create new relationships, make new friendships, and find community that feels just very authentic to who you are and where you are now. If you have a past with trauma or just like past, friendship grief, all of the things, if you have a past of things that make you mistrustful to others, 9 out of 10 times, kind of getting in that friendship is going to be and feel very hard for you because there's still so much hurt that has been unresolved. And so I want to share a little bit more about my clinical approach. Before I even choose to work with someone, I have to do a phone consult with them. I must. I don't do the whole my schedule's open, get on my books and just, no. I literally have to get on the phone with you. I have to talk to you. I have to express, number one, I'd like to know a little bit more about when people reach out to me or inquire about my services. I like to hear about how you even heard about me and know about me. And lately I've been seeing some trends and how I've been getting clients. And that's very helpful to know as an entrepreneur, because if it works, I want to just be doing more of that work. And if it doesn't work, I don't want to be doing that work, because you can pay to be on these sites like Psychology Today, Therapy for Black Girls. Just you could be paying for these things. And if you're never getting clients from them, then it probably doesn't serve you well. And you should switch your marketing efforts. So I realized that I'm getting clients in really consistent ways. The young girlies are finding me on Instagram. The millennials and my agers or more are finding me on Psychology Today. And then my out-of-staters, people who I do coaching with, are finding me or kind of getting me through referrals, personal people who've worked with me, and they're now referring me to their aunts and their friends, which I really love. So I have to talk with you. I gotta get on that phone. We gotta have a consult before we meet, because baby, if we go into that first session and you're I don't know, this just don't feel right for me, this ain't a fit, how you do things, is it, this is not how I want to, and I like to be collaborative in the approach. For example, I had a client who did not want to talk about her middle school years of her life because she said that was the worst time of her life. And so she wanted to come in therapy and talk about everything but that. And when I expressed to her how much sense that didn't make. And of course I didn't say it in these words, but when I expressed to her how much sense it doesn't make, she was very upset about that and was like, well, I don't want to talk about it. But everything we were talking about kept coming back to this time. And so if I don't understand you in the context in which you've lived and experienced, I would not be able to help you. I'm a firm believer in that. You can pay me the money, but if I don't think I can help you, I am going to refer you out. If I don't think I'm the therapist for you, I'm going to give you my honest and authentic clinical opinion to say that. So for you, if you're new here to my corner of the internet, I am a therapist. I do individual and group therapy for women of color, specifically struggling with anxiety, looking for community, friendship, and just how to be more connective and expressive in relationships. And I hold workshops, whether it be corporate events or just for organizations. And I'm an author and a researcher. So researcher, that's one of my favorite titles. I love the research aspect of what I do because that's informing a lot of the interventions that you can use with clients. And interventions are like what you do as a therapist to help a client like reach a goal or overcome an obstacle. So research is really important about that. But what I notice about the research part is it doesn't always reflect Black and brown people. So I really like the research aspect because I want to find the things that work for the people who I serve. And we're not always represented in the research, and that's something that I hope to do. With all of that being said, my clinical approach and why that's important. If you are in the market for a therapist and you want to interview your therapist because you are within your right, and you really probably should, consult with your therapist before you meet with them or you choose to work with them. Some of the really important things you may want to know about a therapist is their approach to therapy, because that looks different across the board. I don't believe that every therapist who has a specific approach is the same, because we're different as people too. Like, we have experiences and upbringing and things that are happening for us on the back end that have wired our minds to understand information, to help others understand information. Just all of the things, like our lives and past impact us some way or another. So learning your therapist's clinical approach, I feel, as a therapist and someone who's actively been looking for a therapist and have found a therapist, is really important to know, because I think it gives you insight on the work that you're about to do, and sometimes it helps you build a rapport with your therapist and also trust them. Like, it's a real sketchy feeling to be with the therapist and them doing something, and I am guilty of this because I've experienced this before. But it sucks when you're working with someone and they're doing something, or they're trying to take you somewhere, or y'all are talking about something and they may be missing the mark, or you just may be confused of like, what are we doing right now? Why are you asking me this right now? Why is this important? But when you know and understand your therapist's when you know and understand your therapist, I had to change a little something real quick. But when you know and you're aware of your therapist's clinical approach, I think it just breeds more rapport, safety, and it like alleviates that confusion that you may have about like what is happening. So something that I've learned through my master's program that I don't agree with is this kind of straightforward, let's go in, why are you here today? What brings you to therapy? Tell me more about your symptoms right now. Like, share with me your experience right now. No. I think that's a very Western, white, boxed in way of seeing how a client presents. And so this is why my consult over the phone is so important, because I'm kind of asking you that question there. Something made you go on the internet, go on your phone, something made you look for a therapist. number one. And then something made you look at me and say, hey, I want to inquire about you. Like, you chose me, right? Something led you there. And now if you say, hey, lately I've been being really anxious, or my stomach's been hurting, or, my relationships are going to shit, right? I'm going to have insight from there, right? So for me, that first call is so important. And I truly and honestly believe that every therapist should be doing their due diligence depending on how you operate and the type of clients that you work with. I can specifically say for my population, getting that information prior to working with you has proven to be one of the most effective things I could have did when I switched from working under another private practice to my own. So that's number one. I think that just the way we conceptualize people as just their symptoms could be very unfair. Now, I have this brief consult. We kind of talk about why now, why me, and then I share a little bit more about my clinical approach in that conversation. And so for me, I use a very holistic and chronological, right? So like with the times, holistic and chronological contextual model. Okay? If you don't speak this language, if you're not a therapist and you're watching this, or you're someone who's seeking therapy and you're watching this, and you're like, hey, I want my therapist to do that, or I want to use that approach. I don't really know what it's called. Right now, research that I've done and I'm presenting on, I have referred to it as the choice method. Because my second supervisor that's coming from the private practice I was just working at, her name is Keisha Choice, and she taught me the error in my ways of what I learned from grad school and showed me this is why this won't work and you won't see the effectiveness with your clients. Straight up, she told me. Like in supervision, I kept bringing her cases and I would get stuck at a certain point. And then she would ask, well, what about this? What about this? And I'm like, oh, I don't know that. Oh, we haven't talked about that. I'm not sure of that. And she's like, yeah, you're missing the mark because you're missing the mark. Like there's so much that you have to cover before even now becomes important. And when I started to think about that, I'm like, wow, like how much sense that actually makes. And so you're taught in grad school that there's this biological, this psychological, and this social model, or like social factors that you want to learn about people to kind of give you a fair assessment of where they are, who they are, that type of thing. So in this biopsychosocial format, most therapists start with you right now, and then through your work together, you go backwards to figure out to see how the pieces work. For me, we start at the back. We start back then, earliest memories for most people, depending on, I think like trauma and upbringing. Some people's memories go back as early as 3 or 4 years old, which I find so wild to remember that early. And then other people can't remember anything before the age of 10, right? So wherever memory and just like your recollection of your history starts, that's where I start. And then through this time, we go over very important developmental factors of life, right? So that may cover like who was in the household with you in these earliest memories, who raised you, who were the adult figures there, how emotionally available were they to you, right? Because those things alone are going to tell me as a clinician important things about you, right? If you had a mom who you could not go to for help, she was super critical of you, she judged every decision that you made, you didn't feel safe, right? If you had a problem, you just figured it out yourself. That is going to show up one way or another in your young adulthood and life now, whether you're people pleasing, whether your inner self-talk is really critical, whether you're very judgmental of others and you find it hard to give people grace. Welcome back. Remember, I was just leaving the office because I forgot my office keys because on my car key. So I just made it home. I had a brief intermission, and now I'm back on the road. So to continue from where we left off at, in this biopsychosocial model, instead of getting these things here and there and trying to compile the pieces, I find it very helpful to my client to just tell their story from earliest memories, and we go through certain developmental stages to see maybe what characteristics you did or didn't obtain, like what was accessible to you at the time versus what was not. And into that example of, being young, if between the ages of 5 and 10, your mom was very critical, she wasn't emotionally available, when you needed something, when you were in trouble, you had no one to turn to, you felt alone, something bad or scary was happening, you were not thinking about your safety, you were thinking about, my mom's gonna beat my ass. That is telling. And a lot of those things from those earlier days, depending on then how you spend your life, either healing, going to therapy, reprogramming your thoughts, identifying limiting beliefs, depending on you doing or not doing that work, things from your childhood are probably going to show up right now as a young adult. And that's what I see a lot. And that was the case for me. I remember being young and being forgotten at school sometimes. I didn't even know my anxiety kind of started as a 5 or 6 year old. I didn't even know anxiety until I went to therapy as a 25-year-old. Like, I was so unaware of so much. And this is prior to my education. This is before going to therapy. Like, this is before becoming a therapist, I meant to say, not going to therapy. Like, I see it in myself. I saw it for myself. So now I could bring about this information and this level of awareness to my clients a little differently. So my approach is rooted in going through life with you. The foundation that I look at development through is through Erik Erikson's psychosocial stages of development. And he proposes that there are these stages: 0 to 3, 3 to 5, 6 to 11, 12 to 18, 19 to 40, 40 to 65, and 65 plus. That's how he separates these stages. And I kind of use that as my outline. When working with clients of how we look at life. Most people don't remember birth. So if you do, you're probably lying. I take that back. You could remember birth. I actually do have a client who's very spiritually inclined. She's an active dreamer, sleepwalker, sleep talker, astral projector. Knew her mom had a miscarriage. She had told her mom very young that she remembered her brother dying, and she was a twin, and her parents had never told her that, and she knew that. So I take that back. Technically you could remember it and you could know it, but most people, we don't. And so I use these developmental stages, right? 3 to 5. Most people remember, like, going to school for the first time. But even that, what did it feel like in your house? What did it sound like? Do you remember your parents fighting? Do you remember being loud? Do you remember being really quiet? Everyone was in their own rooms. Do you remember just laughing, smiling? Were your parents dancing in the kitchen and kissing each other? Right? All of these things from very young, we are forming rules about the world. And I try to get to the root of maybe what rules were you creating or learning during these very formative years. So we go through these sects of school. What was elementary school like? How did you get along with other people? Was it easy to make friends? Were you self-conscious? Were you bullied? Right? All of these things are going to be really telling into how you transition into middle school or high school. Right? In high school, were you valedictorian? All you cared about was school grades and getting right to it? Did you play a lot of sports? Were you thinking about college? Were you doing drugs? Were you sneaking and drinking on the weekend? Were you promiscuous? Were you having a lot of just frivolous sex and multiple different sexual partners? Where was your sense of self? How did you identify? Who did you identify with? And during childhood, for me, I keep coming back to what was that relationship with those caregivers, because that's going to tell us quite a bit. Now, some clients come in and they're like, hey, we didn't have 2 sessions and I haven't even got to what is bothering me right now. It's like, I get it. And I have to reassure them, I know, and we're gonna get there. But by that 4th session, by the time we have gotten current, they are able to then start making some connections for themselves. Something else about my approach is I'm very collaborative. I'm not here. Something about my approach is I'm very collaborative. I'm not here and I don't work for you. I'm working with you, right? Like, I'm providing education around things that may be important for you to know. Some clients get really confused about that. Like, I'm not a public servant. I'm not the police. I'm not a firefighter. I don't work for you. Your tax dollars don't pay me, babes. I work with you. We are coming up with a plan together for your healing, right? And that starts with you creating the goals that you have for yourself. Sometimes my clients may have a hard time coming up with the goal, and through what I'm hearing you say, right, I can kind of assist you in what that is. Oh, it sounds like you want coping skills, or you want to learn techniques for your ADHD, or you want to process how this last relationship has impacted your views on love, or you want to understand, right, or call out some maladaptive thought patterns that no longer serve you, right? So sometimes I can help you put it in like the words or come with the idea, but you have to have the notion of like, what is the work that you're trying to do? So if you are in the market for a therapist, if you are looking for mental health help, if you feel like something is off, but nothing is wrong with your life, because I think I run into that too. I went to a happy hour, and I don't even like to lead with people that I'm a therapist, but sometimes the conversations that we get into turn into like this type of therapy, and they're like, hold on, the way you just listen and ask these reflective questions, are you a therapist? It's like, god damn it, you caught me. Because I try to keep that in my back pocket as not something that I want to wow, either they're trying to get their attention or they're trying to hit them. What's going on? So if you're in the market for a therapist, if you want to just consult with the therapist, if you just want to get ideas or like just help with what is happening, what I have started offering is just like short, because my consultations are usually about 10 minutes, but for 20 minutes we can go a little longer if you're trying to basically get direction. That won't be a whole full session, and it won't be anything reflective from me, but more or less I can provide you with tools and things to think about so you can make that decision for yourself. But I'm a strong believer as well, and I'm probably biased because I am a therapist and I am in therapy, and I've seen that work and do great things for people. I just believe we all need therapy at some degree, at some sort. Healing is not linear. Healing is never ending. Your journey continues. You change, you develop. You're like ever evolving. So you're never going to be too knowing, too healed, all the way together to say, yeah, this ain't for me. Like, I'm too good for this. All right. This is how I knew one of my past friends didn't really have a space to be my friend, because she had been through so much. And when I had asked her, like, well, how's therapy going? She's like, yeah, my therapist said I'm too smart for therapy. Like, I'm so self-aware. Like, I just kind of know these things. And I said, well, either you're lying, either you didn't have a good therapist, or you're not being real, like in therapy with the therapist. Like, you're either lying to yourself, you're either lying to them, or they just maybe are not good at what they do, right? Who's to say? But if a therapist ever tells you you are too smart for therapy, you don't need therapy, you're too good for this, I would question a whole bunch of everything, because something about that don't even seem right. So yeah, this bridge is so beautiful. It's so beautiful out right now. Like these clouds, I wish y'all could just see this bridge I'm going over, how these clouds are just sitting so comfortably, fluffily in the car. And I can't believe I had to drive to the office only to forget my key, to have to drive back home only to get my stuff in 5 seconds to drive right back to the office. I don't pay for gas, so I ain't trying to complain, but damn, this has been quite the morning. If you've stayed this long and you've tuned in, welcome to my corner of the internet. I appreciate you being here, and until next time, I'll see you again.